Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about the Aron confirms, the AMC price reverse, the squeeze potential, and many more in this video. First, taking a look at this. So yesterday we talked about how Aron has bought more AMC shares, and he later on put this out on Twitter. I have enormous confidence in AMC and the 2026-2027 box office. So today, using my own money, I bought 250,000 more AMC shares personally at market price, and now outright own 2.4 million AMC shares, raising the total where I have economic interest to 12.3 million AMC shares. It actually can be very hard for a CEO of a public company to buy shares. You have to clear having possession of any material non-public information, and this is something that we're going to talk about later on as well. It's something we've mentioned in the past before, but he was finally able to buy AMC positions after he was in that position after the quiet period he had to be. As I said, I have great confidence in AMC's future. So again, today I put my money where my mouth is. And one of the biggest things he talks about, and again, talking towards the retail traders, the apes, is talking about I ride with you. So you have to realize about the benefit, the interest that Aron has in AMC. Remember, he's the biggest individual retail investors. And I think there's a lot of things that comes from this. Firstly, with the public purchase of shares, Aron has now confirmed the value of AMC at these prices are likely to reverse. Why? Because the company cannot be denied based on fundamental value. And so if you're not pushing this quarter to see what we're capable of, what are you doing? And this is something we talked about when you take a look at how well AMC is improving, how big of a projection it has for the future. You're seeing AMC doing extremely great in these departments. We've already talked about restructuring of the debt, paying off of the debt. We talked about increasing revenue. We talked about improving profit, improving operational cost. We're seeing all of these things. They are all being done well by AMC, by the management, by Aron, and this is something we're going to continuously seeing improve even in the future. And so already on that front, you are looking at how that is a good fundamental value buy because of the value it provides. But more on this is the fact that we are seeing some of the future projections. Firstly, what we talk about is the box office. Now, we already talked about how the box office is only going to get bigger, especially going to Q3 and Q4. And especially with how efficient AMC is, you can expect it to do even well in Q3 and Q4. We're going to be looking at that massive increase in revenue and a massive increase in cash flow. But also on top of this, it's talking about the collaborations, kind of the projects that AMC has ongoing. We talked about the Netflix collaboration. We talked about Arena 1. All of these things are all future projections that is going to bring AMC to a very, very good place. And then when you talk about in terms of the investments that AMC has made, and we're not even talking about HYMC, but rather we're talking about all the cinemas that they are creating. This is also saying how AMC is going to do well. We talked about the premium screens that they have been trying to create and invest and just kind of increase. And this is something that's also allowing AMC to take market share. So this is how we know AMC is going to do well. And going on about the MNPI, we talked about cleared having possession of the MNPI. Sounds like Aron and AMC was showing stuff about others rather than others showing stuff about AMC, and now it's all public. So what we can make the connection to, and this is not confirmed, but rather something that's in the air, is obviously because of the potential recent accumulation by Discovery and Penwater. Remember, they all want shares of AMC, one of which have done so by, of course, reducing debt. And this is something that we talked about with, if they are all in demand of AMC shares, it must be because they know something's about to happen for AMC, or at least they have very good projections for the future of AMC. So the very fact that they are willing to do this, and now Aron's starting to buy AMC, it really feels like it's because they are trying to force something coming. And a big thing about this is because, remember, and this is something I said earlier, Aron is the biggest benefactor of this because he owns now roughly 12 million common shares. And so if AMC reaches $100 per share, AA becomes a billionaire alongside shareholders. Now, this is what we've said with how Aron benefits the most from AMC squeezing. A lot of people think that Aron don't want AMC to squeeze. But when you talk about how many shares he owns and how much money, how much profit is able to gain if AMC were to squeeze, This is what we're talking about, going into the billions and higher. And this is only at $100 per share, not to mention truly how high it can go to. And when we're already looking at that, it should tell you about what we need to be watching out for, why Adam Aron is always trying to improve AMC, why he's trying to push certain projects that he's very vocal on, why he's doing the best he can for AMC, and especially why he's buying even more shares of AMC, because he knows what's about to happen, because he's very confident, and this is something he said himself about AMC. And so this is how we know that this is the biggest push for AMC right now. And if we see Adam Aron buying shares, I don't think we'll see AMC doing any more refinancing for at least 24 to 30 months. He got the books cleared, and now it should be news, and operational leverage. So the thing about this is that when we see Adam Aron buying, it's obviously because he's very confident about the future. He knows something's coming. He's willing to put the money where where his mouth is. And what we're then likely going to be seeing is, of course, good news. Now, it isn't to say that dilution, that refinancing isn't good news, but we know that it's not the best of news, because whilst refinancing means that AMC is in a better fundamental place, it obviously has dilution. And again, it's not the end of the world, but I definitely agree with the fact that some people may not want to see that. So with this in mind, it's very likely we're going to be seeing for the next few months very, very good news. This isn't to say that there's not going to be anything like this of the sort. I personally think that it's always going to be up in the air, because AMC will do anything they can, and they should do anything they can to put them in a very good position. But it definitely feels like they're about to mention big news, especially with how well AMC is growing. And we can see the beginning of the great pivot of all time from what I'm seeing. The more Adam Aron buys, the more shares go directly to the NYSE, and they better find those shares. This is what we talked about with how Adam Aron is also trying to potentially push for the real shares of AMC. And some people are now speculating this, and again, this isn't to say that this is confirmed, but there is, of course, big potential with this. Now, this is Biotech News speculating from the post. And again, this is 100% speculation and for fun. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because he's mentioning about his speculation in terms of what we saw with the Pentwater's recent put strategy in car, because they talked about, because Aron posted a picture, put my money where my mouth is. Now, the interesting thing about this is because we have also seen recently that a potential big reason for why Adam Aron's buying anyway, and why we've been seeing how Pentwater is trying to buy up more AMC shares, is because they're trying to force a squeeze. And so whilst this speculation is, of course, kind of a tinfoil hat moment, and again, it's for fun, it is lining up with a lot of things that's ongoing for AMC, and it's talking about the potential kind of squeeze, the forced squeeze by Pentwater, especially with what we've seen recently. And on top of this, it feels like very likely we are going to be seeing more insiders buying in AMC. Now, this is something we should definitely keep a close eye to. The reason for this is because if we're seeing more executive buying in, especially C-levels, then it means that they are very optimistic about AMC. It means that they are very confident in AMC. And that would tell you everything you need to know about what's going forward for AMC. So this is, once again, something we should keep a close eye to. And previously, we talked about how Adam Aron is obviously confident for AMC. He's talking about some of the things he's looking out for, some of the things that we should look out for. And it feels like this is all about to come to fruition, and it's all going to line up. And it's why we're seeing all of these sudden movements recently, whether it's from him or others. But another correlation that we can make here is Ryan Cohen previously talked about how CEOs should buy shares of their own company with their own money. Now, the interesting thing about this is because recently we talked about how now there's a connection between Ryan Cohen and Adam Aron because of the connections on Twitter, and we're seeing him do the same thing as what Ryan Cohen is saying. It feels like more and more there is that perhaps collaboration partnership between the two, and now that is speculating in the air as well. But we talked about how this will be extremely powerful if it was to be true. And we're also seeing this right now, and this is why Adam Aron buying AMC is so powerful. AMC's float was captured by retails long ago. Typically, retail accounts for 15 to 37% of all daily trading volume. So if AMC retail buys and holds just 15% of the volume, daily volume, after 5 years, that's 10 extra float. And this is a very conservative assumption. But now, not to mention that now we're seeing even more people buying into AMC, especially with kind of this movement that Adam Aron is creating. You can imagine how much more pressure this is going to create for the short sellers and what this would mean for the synthetics and of course the squeeze price for AMC. Because at the end of the day, 3.8 million retail investors, 582 million shares outstanding, short interest elevated, utilization high. So even if a fraction of retail keeps accumulating AMC, the float gets tighter and the pressure cooker gets hotter. And that's what we are seeing. And this is why I said about how powerful it is with what Adam Aron is doing. And you can already see how well this is doing. What we're seeing is how AMC has already been building a gamma ramp since Monday. Essentially what we're seeing right now is the pressure kicking in, is really all of this liquidity stress that's happening for the short sellers as retail all piling into AMC. And we talked about how powerful this can be, especially when we've seen in the past what would happen when we cause a gamma squeeze, what will happen when we cause a illiquidity problem for the short sellers. And this is something that we are already seeing happening. And another big thing is that what we're seeing right now is in the past, when you look at data, what we're seeing is how they let the stock price without borrowing shares to suppress the volatility. And so with this in mind, it feels like very likely going into tomorrow, going into the future, we're going to be seeing price continuously breaking out. We're going to see price continuously having that volume. And so it's obviously very interesting to see this. And kind of going back to what we said earlier, the recent short squeeze in car may have just been a sight into what's to come for AMC. And it's ultimately what we're saying that Adam Aron is potentially also looking out for. And now they're trying to push something away. What we saw with AMC going up is that they talk about how AMC is surging 7.81% after a nationwide expansion of its feature fare menu, when we know that that's not the case. It is good news at the end of the day, but it's not why AMC is moving up. And we know the real reason for why AMC is moving up is because of all of the suppression that has been ongoing, that has been beaten when retail is ready to pile in. And that's ultimately what they're trying to hide away. On top of news like that, you're seeing how people are trying to continuously talk about FUD on GME. And they talk about kind of what GME is trying to do. They talk about Ryan Cohen. But at the end of the day, we know what these news articles are like. Because a big reason for why they are scared is we're seeing GameStop acquiring eBay shares, increasing the stake, and now talking about how GME owns 6.55% of eBay. Now, this is extremely powerful because this is one step closer to what they're trying to do. Now, would this have a kind of an ultimate goal in the end? It's something that Ryan Cohen is obviously trying to do. We don't know for sure what's going to happen, but it's why all of these institutions are worried. And it's why you will see all of these units of XRT being created, because they need to find shares of this to suppress GME, to suppress AMC. And it's why we're seeing everything that's ongoing right now for the two stocks. Another big thing is recently we talked about the tokenization. And we talked about how tokenization allows third parties to create shares of companies without that individual company's consent or kind of collaboration. Now, when you ask the question, would Citadel be able to create these tokens if it passes? They said yes, Citadel will be having the ability to be able to do this. So now you start to see why they're trying to push tokenizations. And truly you understand why there's so much synthetic positions that's out there. And on top of all of this, you also have the yen carry trade. We talked about how this is obviously going to be a big thing as well. It's something that we have been kind of keeping a close tab to for a very long time. And on top of everything, it's just a big, big factor. And finally, the reverse repo, 24.86 billion. The counterparties actually decreased to 16 as opposed to yesterday's of 20, yet the money went up. This is very worrying because it talks about people need large chunks of money now. And it talks about the potential stress that they are in. And this is why we've said that market crash is likely to happen. As always, this is financial advice, and I'll catch you guys next time.